champagne, caviar, and simmering rage. The untold story of why Iran's revolution was not an accident, but inevitable.
The protests begin
Imagine
tomorrow at
Tehran in the
university. You must be
1970s.
ready for the consequences.
It is a city of soaring skyscrapers, Western fashion, and lavish parties hosted by the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. On the surface, it is a beacon of progress, a powerful ally of the United States, swimming in oil wealth. But this glittering facade was built on a foundation of deep resentment. The Shah's White Revolution, a series of aggressive reforms, alienated the traditional merchant class and the powerful clergy. His secret police, the SAVAK, crushed dissent with brutal efficiency. You saw progress, but millions of Iranians saw a puppet of the West, a man erasing their national and religious identity. Then, in 1978, the cracks shattered. A government-published article slandering the exiled Ayatollah Khomeini sparked massive protests. The Shah's response was bullets. Black Friday. Soldiers firing into crowds of unarmed demonstrators in Jaleh Square. The massacre turned dissent into a national uprising.
But the revolution
General
demanded
strikes
everything.
paralyzed the country, bringing the
streets
oil
belonged to the
industry,
people then.
the very source of the Shah's power, to a grinding halt. By January 1979, the game was over. The Shah, isolated and terminally ill, fled his own country, never to return. The Peacock Throne, a symbol of 2,500 years of Persian monarchy, was empty. But what or who would fill that void was a terrifyingly open question. The White Revolution was meant to liberate. Instead, it ignited a fire that consumed an empire. Why? Imagine Iran in the early 1960s. Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, flush with oil money and backed by the West, had a colossal dream. He saw a new Persian empire, a secular, modern powerhouse that would rival the great nations of the world. His grand project was a top-down transformation, promising a golden age of literacy, land reform, and women's rights. Tehran began to glitter, a playground for a new, westernized elite. The Shah was building his utopia. But this wasn't a revolution of the people. For every farmer who received a small plot of land, countless others felt their traditional way of life being systematically dismantled.
Became the symbol of a
The
revolution
powerful
born
clergy
of
saw
blood.
the Shah's secular reforms not as progress, but as an attack on Islam itself. While a select few prospered, a deep, silent resentment was brewing in the villages and bazaars. The Shah was building a beautiful house, but its foundations were set in sand. What if your nation's savior was its greatest tormentor? The chilling paradox of the Pahlavi dynasty. On the surface, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi presented a modern, westernized Iran. But beneath the veneer of progress, a dark current of fear was spreading.
Protests begin tomorrow. at
Imagine
university.
knowing that any word
must
of
be ready for
dissent,
the
even a
consequences.
whisper in your own home, could lead to a visit from the SAVAK. This was the Shah's infamous secret police, an organization whose name became synonymous with torture and disappearance. They were the unseen hand enforcing loyalty, ensuring the silence of thousands upon thousands. While the elite in Tehran enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, fueled by oil wealth and Western connections, vast swathes of the country were left behind. The gap between the dazzling rich and the desperately poor grew into a chasm of resentment. You saw ancient traditions being swept aside for foreign customs, a cultural erosion that alienated the devout and the nationalist alike. A deep, simmering anger was taking hold in the mosques and the bazaars. The foundations of the Peacock Throne were cracking, not from an outside threat, but from the silent fury growing within. And a figure, exiled far away, was about to give that fury a voice. A nation on the brink,
We wanted
its
progress,
savior,
but the revolution
or its
demanded
destroyer.
everything.
His
The
message,
streets
a
belong to the
whisper
people
on
there.
magnetic tape, became a roar. From a quiet suburb in Paris, an old man in exile spoke into a microphone. That man was Ayatollah Khomeini, and his weapon was not a gun, but a simple cassette tape. Imagine this, smuggled across borders, copied from one machine to another. These tapes spread like wildfire through Iran. In mosques, in bazaars, in secret gatherings inside homes, a nation huddled around cheap tape players to hear his voice. He spoke of ancient faith and modern betrayal. He condemned the Shah's white revolution not as progress, but as a poison, a Western plot to corrupt the soul of Iran. He called the Shah a puppet of the United States, a traitor to his people and his God. Each sermon, recorded thousands of miles away, landed like a hammer blow against the monarchy's legitimacy. This was not just religious dissent. It was a meticulously crafted call for total revolution, turning whispers in dark rooms into a deafening cry for the Shah's throne. Black Friday. Not shopping, but a massacre that changed everything. Forever.
The protests had reached a
Imagine
turning point.
this, August
Jala
1978.
Square became the symbol of a
You're in a
revolution
packed
born
movie
in
theater.
blood.
Suddenly, the doors are barred from the outside, and the building is set ablaze. Over 400 people are burned alive. The government blames religious fanatics, but the streets whisper a different name, SAVAK, the Shah's dreaded secret police. A spark of protest just became an inferno of rage. This rage found its rhythm in death. In Shia tradition, you mourn the dead again on the 40th day. Every protester killed by the Shah's forces created a new memorial 40 days later. And each
Shah's
memorial
forces are
became a
everywhere.
new, larger
The protests
protest.
begin tomorrow at the university.
More deaths,
We must be ready for the
more
consequences.
funerals. A self-perpetuating cycle of fury that the regime could not stop. It all culminated on September 8 in Tehran's Jaleh Square. Martial law had been declared, but the people didn't know. They gathered in the thousands, unarmed, and the soldiers opened fire. The official death toll was 88, the opposition claimed thousands. The true number was irrelevant. The blood in the square severed the final bond between the monarch and his people. The massacre was meant to crush the movement. Instead, it guaranteed the revolution. Iran in meltdown. The Shah, tragically ill, felt the ultimate betrayal. His response: a final, solitary journey into oblivion. By late 1978, the country was a ghost of itself. Oil fields were silent. Banks were shuttered. The grand boulevards of Tehran, once symbols of his modernizing dream, were now
The streets
battlegrounds.
belong to the people there.
And behind the palace walls, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was fighting a second, secret war against the cancer consuming him from within. His American allies, who had once toasted his power, now saw him as a dead weight. Their ambassadors delivered polite, but firm, suggestions he should leave. A temporary vacation, they called it. A chance for the situation to cool down. But everyone knew the truth. On January 16, 1979, he stood on the airport tarmac. A king without a kingdom. He took a small container of Iranian soil with him, a final, desperate connection to a land he would never see again. As his plane climbed into the sky, it left behind not a solution, but a terrifying power vacuum. A void that one man, waiting in exile, was more than ready to fill. February 1st, 1979, a single plane, carrying one man, instantly detonated a 2,500-year-old monarchy. How? Imagine the scene. Not thousands, but millions of people flooding the streets of Tehran. A human sea stretching as far as you can see. They are all there for him, Ayatollah Khomeini, returning from 14 years of exile. Just 16 days earlier, the Shah, the King of Kings, had quietly fled the country he no longer controlled. Now, this austere, 76-year-old cleric was landing, and with his arrival, the final pillar of the old regime was about to crumble. The Shah's last prime minister desperately tried to hold the line, but the military, the very foundation of the Pahlavi dynasty, was disintegrating. Soldiers were defecting, handing their weapons to revolutionaries. The generals were paralyzed. On February 11th, the armed forces declared neutrality. It was over. The government collapsed. The monarchy was gone, not with a final battle, but with a declaration of surrender. A new, uncertain chapter for Iran had begun, and the world watched in stunned silence. The question on every world leader's mind was no longer if the revolution would succeed, but what terrifying new form it would take. Imagine the scene. The tyrant is gone. The streets of Tehran, once filled with tear gas and gunfire, now erupt in celebration. But as the old regime collapses, a chilling question hangs in the air. Who fills the void? The answer arrives on an Air France jet just 2 weeks later. Ayatollah Khomeini, the exiled cleric, returns to a hero's welcome from millions. But this isn't a victory parade. It's a seizure of power. He doesn't just want to rule, he wants to remake the entire nation in his own image. Within months, a referendum is held. The choice is simple, almost brutal. An Islamic republic, yes or no, 98% say yes. Suddenly, revolutionary committees are the law. The newly formed Revolutionary Guard becomes the sword of the new regime. Everything you thought you knew about Iran, about the balance of power in the Middle East, is being rewritten in real time. A new order is born, forged in religious fervor and revolutionary zeal. And the world, especially the United States, is about to discover just how profoundly this one nation's transformation will change everything.